feeling so worn. Contradicted, living so torn. Inside of me like a quiet storm. Ever since the day I was born, so tired, feeling so worn. Contradicted, living so torn.
Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Easy Does It, where we review and react to YouTube channels and videos, and we also do daily vlogs sometimes. Now this week we're checking out a channel called Marvelous Videos. They've had almost 300 million views. They've been on since 2017, and they got about 940,000 subscribers, which is okay. They're not doing too bad. They're mainly like a list channel. They do a bunch of lists, but they also do other stuff that within pop culture, like your cinema and cartoons and comic books. Just giving you background information, similar to another channel you may have heard of called Mojo.com. We're going to check out one of their videos called 12 Insanely Underrated 80s Cartoons. We'll see if this is a decent list or not.
Don't you ever quit, Rambo! When you're fighting evil, you never ever give up.
Yeah, I remember the Rainbow
underrated 80s
cartoon.
cartoons that ended too soon. The 80s was a sacred decade for cartoon enthusiasts. Kids growing up in that era would eagerly wait for the Saturday mornings and weekday afternoons for some of the best cartoon shows ever created.
Cartoons for just about everything, like
What are you doing here?
a good action movie or something would
These
come out, and
shows
then
shaped
they
an
do a
entire
cartoon
generation
on
and
it.
are terribly dear to the fans even after all these years. In this
Silverhawks,
video, we will take you
Dungeons
for a
and
heavy
Dragons.
dose of nostalgia as we bring
I
you some
really
of the
didn't know
lost
they
gems
did a
from that era.
RoboCop
They
cartoon.
might not have been on for very
not
long,
surprising.
but they did provide some of the best memories of our childhood. Enjoy a slice of the golden
Thundar,
history
I
of
remember
cartoons.
Thundar.
Before we go into our list, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click from you, but it means a lot to us. Thank you. Let's begin.
Mask. I remember Mask, but I didn't really watch it.
Mask, 1985 to 1986. Matt Tracker is a multimillionaire who learns of a terrible international crime organization called Venom. To counter these evil forces, he teams up with a group of friends, all of whom have some unique special skills just like him. They form the military organization called Mask and become a team of masked crime fighters who operate
never
with
watched
a
the
fleet of hidden
cartoon.
vehicles.
So I couldn't tell you if it was really that good or not. I mean, some
They are
people liked
determined
it,
to destroy Venom and the brains behind
but
its
I thought it was a
operations,
little bit
Miles Mayhem.
silly,
Miles is
so
also
I
the
didn't
man
really care
responsible
for
for the
it
death of Matt's father,
to
and
watch
personal
it.
vengeance partly drives the hero's every action. This cartoon was too good to be forgotten. It definitely
if you
formed
say
an
so.
integral part of 80s action
It
animation
looked pretty
cohort.
silly to
Every
me.
hero was given their own cool vehicle, and you could tell from just one look that the animation was of a substantially high quality.
Okay, follow me.
There are moments that will give you a serious Transformers vibe, such as when the planes turned into helicopters
I just
or
started
race
to
cars
say
began to
that.
fly.
Is this
It was
telling
one
people
of
who
the
did
first crime-fighting
Transformers?
shows in the world of animation, and
That's what
even
it
with
looks like.
simplistic plots, the narrative packed quite a punch. Although the cartoon quickly became a thing of the past, a movie is currently in the works, with F. Gary Gray at the helm. We personally can't wait for the delightful end result, which will take inspiration
Why?
from
They'll
this wonderful
screw it up.
series.
They always do. It's
It is a
Hollywood.
time when magic is more powerful than science, and only those who control the
I
magic
barely
control
remember these
destiny.
guys. This was like a Hasbro.
Visionaries.
Visionaries,
Night of the
yeah,
Magical
they
Light. 1987.
They were like a
On the fictional
Hasbro
planet of Prismos, a super futuristic world with high-end technology, all complex
toy.
machines suddenly
They were
stopped functioning
toys,
as a result of
and then they
combined
did a
radiation
cartoon
from
on
the
it.
planet's three
That happened
suns.
quite
The
often as
inhabitants
well.
of Prismos, knights
They'd
called the
Hasbro
Visionaries,
would come
try to
out
make
with a
up for the
toy, and
sudden
then they'd
lack
do
of
cartoons
technology
on it.
using ancient magic.
I think that's
Those
how
wishing to
He-Man got
acquire
started
the knowledge
too.
of such magic must participate in a competition organized by the wizard Merklin.
It's another one I never got into.
But the
It was
Visionaries
just
are
weird.
divided into two factions, the evil Darkling Lords and the heroic Spectral Knights,
Thought it
and the
was
two
silly.
rival groups wage war against each other relentlessly. This is an overlooked 80s classic, which deserved way
You
more
say so.
appreciation than it received. The complex plots were a welcome change from other basic stuff on offer, and the dialogue wasn't cheesy like some of the other shows of that era.
Careful, you fool! Now pick it up, or your people will suffer.
It was fascinating to watch the Spectral Knights fight the evil Darkling Lords, and the use of various magical elements added to the show's mystery. The funny, dark, and captivating episodes were supported by top-notch voice acting, particularly by those playing the captivating villains. The animation left nothing to complain about, and some stunning transformation scenes featuring men turning into beasts were pulled off effortlessly.
You were in that show!
Well, they didn't transform into bees.
The
It
saddest
was
thing
like
about
some
this show was that it
image
lasted a mere
generator
13
from their
episodes before
chest.
being taken off the air. Perhaps this
It was
amazing
like
series
a
was way ahead
realistic
of its
illusion.
time and suffered the consequences.
So she got that wrong. Of course, Rambo.
Rambo,
Again,
1986.
another cartoon I never
This was
really
an exciting
watched.
and action-packed cartoon series that had the simplest of plots.
Get
But it's
me
not surprising they
Rambo.
made a cartoon
It was
of
all
it.
about how Colonel Trotman managed to convince John Rambo to lead a special unit to counter the sinister activities of Savage, a deadly terrorist outfit. This group specializes in spreading anarchy, violence, and doom, and the narrative captures the heroics of Rambo and his team as they fight against this menace. This is a different version of Rambo than you're used to seeing in the movies. He was pretty much a savage with no remorse for his violent deeds, but here he is keen on saving lives and has much more of a
Wow, I
heart.
can't believe
His
she
enemies are also
went
way
and
more
said that
complex than
kind
in the
of crap.
movies and are even capable of
She's
taking down our
retarded.
protagonist.
Nice knife, Rambo.
For his savage deeds.
All this adds
Well,
together
duh,
to
he's a
create some
soldier, you
nail-biting,
dumb
hard-hitting
bitch.
action sequences that are too cool for school. The narrative somewhat picks up from where it was left off in the third Rambo movie, making it one of the best military-based cartoon shows of all time, in the same league as shows like G.I. Joe. The array of weaponry on offer, such as the AC-130 Spectre gunship and the OV-10 Bronco, will blow your mind. However, there were some problems that could have been addressed in order to achieve better results.
Thanks for the lift. Nice move.
The animation lacked fluidity and vivid colors, and this ruined the experience a bit despite some impressive character designs. The marketing strategies were questionable, and this is probably what led to the downfall of the series, even though it had so much potential. It's not easy to turn a hardened, violent character into something suitable for children's
hardened,
entertainment,
violent
but the
character.
writers took on the challenge
Yes,
and
because
aced
that's
it
what
like
he
pros.
was. Apparently, she's never seen Rambo.
What's going on?
It's Robocop! He's trapped in the research lab! Stop him!
I'm getting out of here before this whole place blows up.
Again, it's
RoboCop,
not surprising they did a
1988.
RoboCop
This series was based on the
cartoon,
original
but I'd
RoboCop
never
movie and
seen it.
reprised the
I
character
didn't know
of cyborg
anything
cop
about it.
Alex Murphy.
Stop to the crime wave that has been plaguing the city thanks to these
I knew they made a
super
TV
criminals.
series for a
Detroit is
little
safe
while.
once again.
He continues his fight to save the city from the
And
notorious
they tried to do
evil
a
elements,
remake
and in
or
the process,
reboot,
he starts to reclaim
but
some
that
of his
flopped
humanity.
pretty
The
bad.
makers added some sparks with characters like Officer Ann Lewis, who seemingly has a crush on Alex, and hardened cops like Lieutenant Roger Hedgecock, who wants to see the likes of Alex terminated. Against all odds, Alex continues to serve sincerely in the line of duty and tries to uphold the law. Don't go in expecting the same narrative as the movie because the makers changed quite a bit around here. For instance, RoboCop here is faster and more agile than in the film.
You are too late.
Robocop!
Well, if they changed a lot, then that's probably
The
why it didn't
technological
do so well.
advancements are also far greater. Lasers are used instead of handguns, and the antagonists, including Clarence Boddicker and his gang, are not dead. The cartoon series obviously couldn't use the same
Okay.
kind of violence that was in the movie, and therefore the
That
narrative
explains
was a
a
bit
lot.
twisted. It was still more mature than some of the other shows of that time. This was one of the reasons that the popularity of the show died out pretty soon. The voice actors deserve a special mention for some splendid work, and the animation does
So that's
justice
not
to their
surprising
efforts.
because
Overall, if
they
you're
did
okay with the
change
idea
all
of
that.
eliminating much of the violence
They made the
found
gang
in the RoboCop
alive
film,
and
this will be an
changed
interesting
all the
cartoon show to
weaponry,
check
the
out.
lasers. Yeah, that's
Silverhawks, 1986.
probably why it didn't last
The
very long.
Silverhawks are cyborgs with mechanical body parts who were recruited
I remember
by Commander
Silverhawks.
Stargazer to fight the evil forces
And
headed
I
by
watched
an
a few
escaped alien
episodes of
mob
it, but
boss.
it wasn't
Very
my
well,
thing.
then. Good flying, Silverhawks.
The Silverhawks have bionic bodies covered with armor that is
Yeah, I
retractable
thought this
protective
show was
masks and
kinda
laser
weird.
weapons. They are
It was
led
just
by the
very,
Quicksilver
very
and his
weird.
Metalbird companion. There's also a
'Cause they're like
mathematical genius by their
cyborgs or
side,
some
and this
shit.
diverse group tries to fight
It's just
the
strange.
notorious
It was a
gang.
strange
This is
cartoon.
an
I couldn't
underrated
get
cartoon
into it.
gem from the 80s, and those
Although
who
it
judge
was
the
okay,
questionable
I
science
just-
in the show seriously lack a good imagination. It was a joyous experience to watch the brightly colored characters in action in the futuristic setting. The villain was a clear Mum-Ra ripoff, but we didn't mind given how amazing it looked. His obedient sidekick was also an entertaining addition to the strange cast of characters in the show. It was one of those shows where the villains were way cooler than the dull and boring heroes.
Sidekick. He had more than one sidekick. He had several minions
Yes, they
that
did
followed
lose in
him.
the end, but not before they almost had you rooting for them. The same people who made this show were responsible for popular hits like Thundercats, and even though the plot is formulaic, we had no problem with the content on offer. If you want a classic retro throwback from the golden era of cartoons, Silverhawks is the one to check out.
Who was that?
Naturally, probably one of the best cartoons of the 80s, right here. Dungeons and Dragons.
In the realm of Dungeons and Dragons.
Most definitely.
Dungeons and Dragons, 1983. A group of
This
friends
isn't an
is
underrated
accidentally transported
cartoon.
into the world
Everybody
of
loves
Dungeons
this
and
cartoon.
Dragons
Everybody
while they're enjoying
remembers
a
this
roller coaster
cartoon.
ride in an
It's
amusement
literally
park.
one
When
of
they
the best
arrive in the
cartoons
new
of the 80s.
mysterious realm, they encounter
For
the
sure.
Dungeon Master, who gives each of them a magical item. They must find their way home out of this world, but it
They
won't
just,
be easy.
whoever
with the evil
did it
Venger trying to
screwed up
steal their
the
weapons to rule the
story
realm
at
with.
the end. And they didn't finish off the series.
I will use
They
the
left
magic
it
of your
off.
hat
Big
to add to
cliffhanger.
my power.
We eventually learn that the Venger is the corrupt son of the Dungeon Master. And the show ends on a cliffhanger, much to our frustration. One of the highlights of this amazing show was the brilliant selection of deep characters, who were a class apart from what you might expect of a show of this kind. The emotional realism in the narrative was fascinating, and we love the naturalistic reactions of the kids dealing with all kinds of emotions from fear to selfishness.
No! This won't get us home. Merlin!
The plots were pretty intense and fast-paced, and throughout the 27 episodes, the storytelling was never found lacking. As we have already mentioned, the premature ending was pretty disappointing, a result of the show being
Yeah,
randomly
that was
canceled.
my big
For many,
disappointment.
this was one
Because
of
they
the
didn't
best
keep it
animated
going.
shows from the 80s, and it's a pity that we never
It's
got a final
literally, it would
episode.
definitely be in the top 5 of
The
the best
Void.
80s cartoons of all time. Okay, I've heard of this cartoon, but I never ever watched it, never seen it.
Ulysses 31, 1981. Ulysses is a famous space explorer in the 31st century. He wishes to return to Earth to be with his wife, but while returning, his son Telemachus is kidnapped. Ulysses destroys the kidnappers, but incurs the wrath of the ancient gods of Olympus.
Until they find the kingdom of Hades, their bodies will
See,
remain
that's
lifeless.
just kind of strange.
Now he must
There's
find
a
the kingdom of
strange
Hades
plot
and defend against the
to the
combined
story,
forces of the
so
gods. Can they
I think that's
ultimately
why I
find their
never
way to
watched
the
it.
Earth?
I will discover the kingdom of Hades and the route back to Earth. I promise you. Don't cry, you
Don't cry.
There's a charm about some adventures, which makes you feel like part of the journey. This animated series
Huh.
does just that, and it
I
is
ne-
a terrific
again, I never watched
French-Japanese
this one.
production that deserves more appreciation.
I
The
couldn't
idea
tell
of
you
finding the
anything
Greek
about it.
gods in a futuristic world is pretty innovative, and the series introduces you to some of the best ancient mythologies through its intriguing narrative. The thought-provoking storylines have a unique style of presentation, which makes them seem like a perfect adaptation of Homer's works. The animation might look dated now, but
Yeah.
back then the art was phenomenal. So
I
was
doubt
the score
that,
and
but
even
whatever.
the catchy theme song.
This woman who's narrating is nuts.
The action will keep you on the edge of your seats, and we were impressed with the deep characters portrayed. The fact that shows like these
No,
have been forgotten is
you
criminal,
was
and
impressed,
goes to show
not
that the
we.
quality of cartoons deteriorated with time.
His courage and his fabulous sun's sword against the forces of evil.
Yep, I definitely remember Thundar.
He is Thundar, the Barbarian.
Thundar the Barbarian.
I never did get
1980.
to watch the whole
This animated
series, though.
series is set in a post-apocalyptic wasteland where
I've
wizards
seen
and magic
a few
prevail.
episodes,
the moon
and I
has
was
been
like
broken in places
really
due
wanting
to
to watch
the
more of
trajectory
it,
of a runaway planet,
but
and the
I've
climate
never
and
been able to
geography of the
find
Earth has been changed forever as a result. Thundar is a mighty
more of
warrior
this
who
show
roams the earth on
online. I'd
horseback
like to.
along with his
I'd
companions.
like to
They
watch the
fight
full
evil
series.
wizards, mutants, and various other threats
I
like
remember
the
it was
Brotherhood
pretty
of Night.
cool
Thundar
cartoon.
has the Sun Sword, which has a powerful energy blade that helps him destroy his enemies.
I see you haven't lost your sense of humor, Ariel.
But that's toxic
His
masculinity.
adventures form the basis of this engaging series, which never got the recognition it deserved. This was one of the
So
finest
dumb.
sword and sorcery cartoon shows back then, entertaining audiences
When she
with some
says it's so
fantastic
violent,
plots.
blah,
The
blah,
adventure in the
blah.
stories was enough incentive for the kids to get hooked on the narrative. Comic book greats like Martin Pasco and Steve Gerber were involved in the writing, but the network censored the fight scenes quite heavily. This Saturday morning gem had everything. Cool fights, lovable characters, humorous sidekicks, and the ultimate battle between good and evil. The protagonist, a barbaric fighter, was popular with the kids, although the grown-ups often frowned at his questionable character. The background animation made things visually appealing, and the well-choreographed action scenes were the icing on the cake. They even released action figures of the characters to capitalize on the show's popularity, but after a time, the show got canceled, leaving only 21 episodes for us to enjoy.
Yeah, they ended that one pretty quick. I don't understand why.
Plotting to capture the step crystal with his own grotesque Rulon forces. The battle continues in a new place and time with Dino Riders.
Oh, Dino Riders.
1988. Can Conquest stories be adorable? Well,
This is
Dino
another one
Riders
I never
certainly
actually
was,
watched.
with its tale of the peaceful Valorians whose land was invaded by the predatory Rulons. A group of the Valorians
It
planned
looked
an
all
escape
right.
in their spaceship, but ended up 65
But
million
it's
years back
another
in time in a world inhabited
dinosaur,
by dinosaurs.
future,
the Rulons followed them there as
sci-fi
well. While
kind
the
of crap.
Valorians used their telepathic skills
So
to
I never
communicate and befriend
really
the
got into
dinosaurs,
it.
the Rulons used their own special powers to control them.
You are grounded, Valorian.
Eventually, it all boiled down to a showdown between good and evil, with the dinosaurs coming to the assistance of their Valorian friends. No prizes for guessing who won. Many people remember Dino Riders as a glorified toy commercial that was aimed at selling overpriced plastic dinosaurs to young children. While this is not completely false, there was so much more to this entertaining show, even if it did only last about 14 episodes. It
Another
was
one
fun
of
to
those
watch the
that
dinosaurs
they
in
make
their battle
toys
gear,
and then turn it
equipped with
into a
missiles and
cartoon.
lasers.
They did that a lot back in the 80s. I think they did sometimes in the 70s too, but the 80s
Just
and
like in the
90s,
best
they
80s
did that a
cartoon
lot.
shows, there's always a lesson to
Made
learn at the
toys
end
and
of
then
each action-packed
made a
episode. We
cartoon
loved
from
the
the
character
toys.
designs, but the dinosaurs definitely stole the show. Our favorite was the Triceratops that had a pair of double cannons mounted on its side, which could rotate to function as armor as well. The artwork is amazing, and the use of vibrant colors made for a visually pleasing experience. The show could have gone on for much longer, but the second season was a disaster, and suddenly it was taken off the air overnight.
Oh, another one, toy turned into cartoon. I didn't watch this one.
Inhumanoids,
I never did watch
1986.
Inhumanoids.
A team of scientists called Earth Corps specializes in
Heard of it.
subterranean exploration. Their simple life is disrupted, however, when they discover a horde of evil monsters from below. These creatures, called the Inhumanoids, teamed up with a notorious traitor named Blackthorn Shore and started attacking the world. As the threat grew worse, the Earth
Okay.
Corps and their alien allies became the first line of defense against the invaders. This underappreciated classic was pretty scary for the kids back in the day. The plot was fueled by the urge to sell toys, but things soon changed for the makers. Inhumanoids proved to be one of the rare occasions where the writers were allowed a lot of creative liberty, and the toy line was even canceled after the first season. The people involved in the show's creation were the same who made hits like G.I. Joe and Transformers. One of the monsters in the show, called Tendril, was inspired by Lovecraft's Cthulhu and was almost as intimidating. Even some parts of the plot
Yeah,
were
it was
inspired
just
by
too
its stories.
strange.
The animation seems ahead
The
of its
monsters
time,
were
and the
just
background designs of the ancient
a little too
civilizations
much.
are stunning. It would have been even better if the plots were made a tad darker in nature, but then the show had to cater to children. Overall, it was an entertaining watch that was fun while it lasted.
Brutal and cruel attack with spy dragons.
Okay, see, this is another one I heard of, but I'd never watched.
The warriors of Symbion.
Sectars, 1985.
Yeah,
On a planet named
Sectars.
Symbion, a lab experiment went
This one was
horribly
really
wrong,
strange,
creating
too.
dangerous insect like mutants.
She's,
The
this
creatures
list
formed
is a
terror
bunch
troops
of,
led by spy
most of them are
Drax
very
and went on the
strange.
attack. Just as the forces
There's
of
three or
good seemed
four
to
of
be
them that make
overwhelmed, scientists put
some
together
sense,
a unique
but the
humanoid
rest of them
race
are
called
really
the Sectars
weird.
to fight the mutants
They
and
had
save
some
the
really
universe from
weird
impending doom.
cartoons back in the day. They were coming up with some weird ass shit, especially the ones
This
that were
syndicated miniseries with its
selling
5 half-hour
toys
segments
first
might
before
be
it became a
forgotten by many,
cartoon.
but
It
some
didn't
still
always
remember
work.
fondly the interesting sci-fi
Sometimes it
plot.
did, sometimes
like any
it don't.
conventional cartoon
Like
plot
He-Man.
from that time, this
It
show
worked.
had the typical good guys and dramatic
Transformers,
villains,
it
which
worked.
happened to look like spiders.
But a lot of times
the
it
makers
didn't always
focused on
work.
bringing together likable characters, and if you overlook some questionable writing, you will appreciate this joyous nostalgia trip. The plot incorporated some elements of Greek mythology, making for a pretty interesting narrative. The medieval weapon combat and well-choreographed shootouts and aerial assaults were consistent treats for action lovers. The show intended to replicate the success of He-Man, going so far as to release a toy line shortly after its release. But of course, that didn't quite work out, and after only 5 episodes, we never heard from Sectars again.
I don't know how we can ever repay you for all you have done, Rambo.
The happiness of your people is payment enough, Mr. President. Freedom is the one gift that's for all or none.
And that was Marvelous Videos. As you can see, they have several other different types of stuff, but a lot of times it's mostly list stuff. And they do give some background information on some stuff as well. But other than that, sometimes they have some interesting stuff to show, but most of the time I really don't care for most of their stuff because, like I pointed out a few times, she gets a few things wrong, and she even uses some biasm in this freaking video. But what do you expect? And with most list channels, they don't always get it right either. It's basically, opinionated stuff. So anyways, I give them a thumbs up and a thumbs down. They're okay. You can check them out if you want. They ain't horrible, but they ain't great either. So until next week, everyone take care, and thank you for watching.
Bye.